Hey, 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 happy 2021 officially. Guys, we made it, all right? And if you just got engaged, congratulations. I am so glad that you found your way here to this episode of the Florida Wedding Podcast. I'm your host, Heidi Hoffman, and I own a wedding photography and videography company called Pine & Forge, based in St. Petersburg, Florida. And I'm here to be your wedding planning BFF for anything you need and make wedding planning a total breeze by providing answers to common questions, by sharing advice, ideas, and solutions for your unique wedding, and by connecting you with Florida vendors who are ready to join you in your celebration. This week, I have Angelina Colhouer here with me, who is the brilliant behind the Apostolic Wife, a luxury wedding planning business based in Central Florida. I met Angelina through Deirdre and Mike, one of my 2021 wedding couples, and I've been able to see her in action at a styled shoot this past year. And y'all, she is amazing. And I am so excited to get to work with her in real life this year and that I get to share her with you on this episode. But before I get Angelina on here, I wanted to thank Basic Invite for sponsoring this episode. A lot of couples get engaged this time of year, and Basic Invite is the place to go for affordable, custom save the dates and invitations. You know, there's going to be a lot to celebrate in 2021, and you're going to want to send out invites, whether you're gathering virtually or in person or both. Basic Invite has everything you need to invite your favorite people to celebrate with you. So use the code PINEandForge, PINEandForge, to get 20% off your order at basicinvite.com. Alrighty, let's get Angelina on here because her planning advice is absolutely stellar, and you're probably going to want to have a piece of paper handy to take some notes on this one. So first, I'm going to have you tell me who you are and where you're located in the state of Florida.
Hey, I'm Angelina Colhouer. I am based in Tampa, Florida. I live in Wesley Chapel, but I do a lot of my planning in the Tampa area, St. Pete and Clearwater.
So talk to me a little bit more about what you do and the services that you offer.
So we are a luxury wedding planning company. So we are doing weddings. I just started to do like high-end birthday parties. I kind of slowed my roll into that, working my way into that. But mainly weddings. We do a pretty good amount of weddings every year. This year, we kind of got a break because of COVID. But next year, we're slammed and I'm excited. So we'll be doing a lot of weddings, wedding styling, and just a few day of coordination projects for some special brides.
Oh, good. That's so exciting. That's so great to hear. Take me back to how you got started.
So I planned my own wedding in 2015, and I had never planned a wedding. I had never been interested in even like looking at wedding magazines. I was just totally just walking into, hey, I need to plan my wedding. So my husband and I agreed that we would get married at the Oxford Exchange in Tampa. It was my absolute favorite place. So after my wedding, everybody was like, you had the most beautiful wedding ever. Will you do my wedding? Will you be my wedding planner? And I'm like, I'm not a professional. I literally just did it for myself. And there's a huge difference between like me on my wedding day and something goes wrong because it was me that did it, and then something going wrong in somebody else's wedding. So I was kind of like, let me just do some for my friends. So I started doing some weddings for my friends, and that was cool. But then other people that were attending those weddings, like strangers that were attending those weddings, would come up to me and be like, you did such an amazing job. My daughter's getting married next year. Do you possibly think that, we could hire you as a wedding planner? So I didn't take those gigs right away. I was like, let me shadow a wedding planner first. Let me shadow a wedding florist first and see if this is something that I can transition. Like at that point, it was just a hobby of mine. So I was like, let me see if this could actually become a business and if I could really enjoy doing this. So I took some time to shadow a planner and shadow a florist on actual wedding days and the days leading up to a wedding. And I fell in love with it. It was so exciting. And, every wedding was so different and every bride was so different. So I was like, okay, I'm going to start taking steps to make this like a real business. So I got the LLC in 2016, but it wasn't until the end of 2016 that I made it like public knowledge that I had a wedding planning company. And ever since then, it's just been amazing.
That's incredible. I want to go back to the part where you said that you shadowed a florist on the wedding day. I think you're the first wedding planner that has told me kind of their background history story, but you're the only one that I've heard of, that I've talked to, that has shadowed specifically a florist. Why?
So I realized that flowers were such a big part of the wedding day. And even like leading up to the wedding day, flowers are really, really important. So I wanted to kind of see why, especially, flowers are kind of the heftier part of the budget too, besides catering. I really wanted to see why and what a florist does that would, lead me to make sure that flowers are an integral part of my wedding planning process when I, became my own planner. So I shadowed a florist. Her name was Maria. And I remember the first wedding that I did with her, it was at the Vault in downtown Tampa. And I saw like how much work went into it. And as the florist, you're actually doing a lot of the setup as well. So you're not just, delivering the flowers, you're delivering the flowers and you're setting up the candles and you're adding, flowers to the cake and you're delivering the bouquets to the bride and the boutonnieres to the groom. And so I just felt like that was also a very big part of the wedding day. And I wanted to see that aspect of the wedding day before I said, I'm ready to commit to being a wedding planner. Like I wanted to make sure that I was able to see both of those sides. I also would have shadowed a cake baker just so I could get like some free pieces of cake on the side. But no, that's just a joke. But yeah, I wanted to see like the biggest two aspects of a wedding day and then decide, okay, is this something that I really want to take on?
Yeah, I think that's so smart because a florist really, there's some serious event design that they've got to have in their background to pull all that together. Because that is a huge part of the whole vision of the reception space, ceremony space, the bouquets, the look of everything. So one big question couples typically have when it comes to wedding planners is, what is the difference between all the different types? You've got a day of, month of, you've got a venue coordinator, you've got a church coordinator. Like, what's the difference between all of those?
So this is my favorite question ever because I think brides really need to know the difference because sometimes at the venue that they're booking, they have a venue coordinator and they're like, oh, well, great. I don't have to do anything. They're there. That venue coordinator / venue manager is really only there on behalf of the venue. So, making sure that people aren't destroying their property, that things are running well. Let's say it's a hotel. So that venue manager is making sure that their staff, their buffet staff is running on time, is up to par. They're making sure that your room block is great. So the venue manager doesn't really have that much to do in terms of making sure all your decorations are up or making sure that you get down the aisle on time. They are not working in that capacity at all. So what I've been seeing a lot now is venues that do have a venue manager, they are letting you know, hey, you need at least a day of coordinator or a wedding planner to work side by side with me. So that's the biggest difference between a venue manager and a venue coordinator in regards to what a wedding planner or a day of coordinator does. So besides your venue manager and your venue coordinator, you at least need the day of coordinator. So the day of coordinator is usually working with a bride about a month before the wedding. So they will either have, a contract with you that says they are day of coordinator or they are a month of coordinator. I've been seeing the two recently.
But they're kind of synonymous, right?
Yeah, they're basically the same because there's no person that can say, hey, I'm a day of coordinator. I'm working with you, 2 days before your wedding. You're typically working with that bride the few months leading up to the wedding. And that person is not doing any designing with you. The day of coordinator is not doing any kind of looking at your Pinterest board and telling you like, hey, let's do this, let's do that in terms of your decoration. They're just there for the logistics of the day. So your day of coordinator is just making sure that your timeline is being run smoothly, that everybody is in place before the wedding, and that everything on your timeline is being executed at the time you guys discussed previously. They're also making sure that your personal items are set out, your guest book, your card box, your place cards. And then at the end of the night, your day of coordinator is making sure all that stuff is nicely packaged up for you and then sent with someone. So that's basically what a day of coordinator is. And if you, book us for day of coordination, the list of services that you get on your contract are super short. It's just like vendor recommendations, timeline creation, final walkthrough, day of, rehearsal, wedding rehearsal, and then day of coordination. So there's not a lot that you're getting with your day of coordinator. It's usually just someone there to give you peace of mind.
Which is so worth it. I mean, I tell all of my couples, like if like a full-on wedding planner is not in your budget, if it's not realistic for you, at least at a minimum, do the day of coordinator, because it saves you so much stress.
Absolutely. And I've heard where photographers actually end up becoming the day of coordinator because there's nobody there to give instructions and nobody there to kind of guide people where to go. And so what happens is the photographer doesn't want to do that, but they have to because the bride just gets so overwhelmed because, well, she's the one who planned it. So people are coming to her for questions. People are coming to her to, hey, where do I put this? Where do I put that? And so the photographer, instead of having a stressed out bride who's not going to smile or look nice in any of her pictures, is kind of just like, hey, let me help out. And that's a lot on just the bride and the photographer. So you do need at least a day of coordinator or a month of coordinator to just get some of that stress off of you, girl. Like, put it on somebody else.
Yeah, it's worth it. I mean, I create timelines for my couples and I keep track of where bags go and all of that stuff and make sure that we're on time.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's a reason to hire a good photographer, is a good photographer will do that. But also, it's even easier on both the couple and your photographers and videographers too. I won't leave them out because sometimes they do that too.
Right.
If you have a day of coordinator.
Exactly. So now I'll talk about the difference between the day of coordinator and the wedding planner. So the wedding planner is who you hire and you're just like, hey, here's my Pinterest board. You know, this is the direction that I want to go in. This is all the colors that I want to have in my wedding. This is the vibe that we're going for. And your wedding planner works with you to achieve that. So they're, recommending their top vendors. They're bringing in their own vendor team sometimes. They are with you from start to finish. They are making sure that everything that you have imagined for your wedding day gets executed on the actual wedding day, or it comes to life per se. So a wedding planner is usually like as soon as you are booking that wedding planner, like the next day, they should be like, okay, let's get this ball on a roll. So I usually like to recommend brides hire your wedding planner at least a year before your wedding. Now, I will say that I've had brides, especially with COVID, have said, hey, I have to replan my wedding in a month. And I just need you to do it. And I'm like, hey, that's exactly how long it takes me to plan a wedding. Let's do it. So you do want to book your wedding planner pretty early on, just so that you just have there's a piece that you have throughout your wedding planning process. And all of the responsibilities are not on you. You have somebody there with you. You have somebody there. The wedding planner is reviewing all of your vendor contracts, making sure that everything is accounted for. One big thing that a lot of brides don't know is there are meal clauses in people's contracts. So like the vendor is staying for the majority of the wedding and they need a meal. Well, is it a hot meal? Do they need to eat when the bride and groom are eating? Can they eat afterwards? Same thing with the DJ. The DJ has a break that he needs to take. And that, all of that needs to be accounted for. So your wedding planner is reviewing every little thing that sometimes a bride may not even think to look at. Now, there is a subcategory in wedding planning. And I did want to speak about that because I see that popping up a lot now. There are wedding planners who would prefer to be called a wedding stylist or a wedding designer. And those are people that are literally translating your Pinterest board into your wedding day. So they're kind of just like those people that you hire as a wedding planner, but they're a stylist and a designer as well. And they're just there to make sure that you drop off your Pinterest page and then you show up on your wedding day and it looks exactly how you imagined. So I see that a lot now, especially in Florida. We get a lot of destination brides and they're coming from like Milwaukee or Canada, and they just, love Florida and they want a destination wedding. So they're hiring a lot of wedding designers and stylists now. And they're just like, here's my budget. Here's my Pinterest page. The wedding is in June in the summer of Florida. And I just want to show up and have it look just like this. And we've actually gotten a lot of those weddings. And those are my favorite because you kind of get like complete creative control over what that wedding is going to look like, how it's going to feel, down to the wedding signage, down to the place cards, down to the late night snack. I really love those weddings. So there is a little subcategory in wedding planners, and it's wedding planner and then wedding stylist / designer.
So what you're saying is the wedding planning stylist / designer is more hands off for the bride or the couple. They've already
Correct.
picked out their Pinterest board. And so you're not popping into like, which place card do you want? Pick one of these 3. You're just like, this is what it is.
Correct. Yes. They don't really want to be involved in that. And it's usually people who have fell in love with your Instagram or they fell in love with your website, those brides that are just obsessed with your particular style as a wedding planner / stylist. And they're just like, here is all the money. You do everything that needs to be done. And we just want to walk into a beautiful wedding day. And so, the wedding designer and stylist is still doing things like timelines and rehearsal the day before. But in terms of the aspect of how beautiful everything looks on the wedding day, the style, the design, the feel, they are being given complete creative control over that.
That sounds like a dream for both parties.
Exactly. It's so amazing. It's so fun. And the best part is just watching them on the wedding day, walk into the ceremony or walk into the reception and their eyes just get so big. And then like the mom of the bride is crying because, like her baby girl's getting married.
It's so beautiful.
Yes. So I just love that.
Yeah. You can practically see the hearts on their eyes,
Exactly.
So I think we hit all of them, right? All the different types of planners. You did a really great job of explaining all of that. I feel like
yes.
There's some clarity there around there now. No, that's good. Another big question that I see, it's a big question, it's pretty common, is it worth it to have an event planner? And I think we've kind of already answered that. The answer is yes. It's so worth it.
The answer is yes, like 1,000 times, just because you really want to enjoy your wedding day. Like you really don't want to have your bridesmaids down there putting up decorations, your mom running all around, your dad, constructing an arch for you because he's a good handyman. Like you don't want to have to do any of that. You really want to just enjoy your pictures that are being taken, time with your bridesmaids, reading notes from your future husband, taking cute pictures. Like you don't really want to be worried about what's going on downstairs in the reception. Just have a wedding planner or a day of coordinator to just transfer all those responsibilities off of you and enjoy your wedding day.
Yeah. So the follow-up question to that is usually, what are some tips to find a good one?
I recommend Instagram 100%. I don't know if it's the millennial in me that is just, I love looking at Instagram pages to see, what kind of weddings this person is planning, what's their style. I'm looking at their mention page because, you can see other vendors that, wedding planners are working with. Pinterest is good to use, but for me, I think the best way is just using Instagram, looking at hashtags, or maybe if you've been to a friend's wedding and you felt like the day went off beautifully, smoothly, ask them, hey, who was your wedding planner or who was your day of coordinator? And that's usually a good way to start.
Mm-hmm. So as people are looking, they're searching on Instagram primarily, and they land on a wedding planner's website, what are some kind of key things that you want to look for to determine, is this someone I can trust?
Absolutely.
I suppose it's probably just like anything else. You want to have a conversation with that person, but kind of that little bit before you reach out, what are couples going to look for on a website that is kind of going to guide them in the right direction?
Couples are looking at, brides mostly are looking at reviews. They want to see reviews of other brides. Did other brides have a good experience? Were they nice? Did they follow through with everything they promised? So reviews are really big. Also looking at, I love this on Instagram now, is the little story highlights. And looking at the behind the scenes, like they want to see, how did you guys get to this beautiful day? Let me see the before and after pictures. Let me see your team working. So I really noticed that, especially when I'm getting inquiries, it's always like, hey, I loved your page, or, oh my gosh, you guys look so fun to work with. We would love for you to do our wedding. The website is more formal. You can't really see a person's like true personality in their website. So that's why I just love Instagram, because you can see the business side, the personal side, the funny side. But that's where I get a lot of brides coming from. They're really like on our Instagram page, and then they'll, flow over to our website. And then I have noticed where brides will even look us up on Wedding Wire and then not, just to see more reviews. And then they reach out to me and just say, hey, I went full circle and we love you. We want to hire you for our wedding.
That's amazing. So a bride lands on your website. They're like, yes, we want to hire you. What information do you need from them to kind of get the ball rolling? Obviously the date, you want to make sure you're available, but like if they're coming to a wedding planner, what information should they kind of have in their back pocket that you're going to need that's most helpful?
So I definitely want to know, what's the guest count? I do want to know, do you know what kind of venue you're looking at? Have you already booked your venue? And then I also want to know, what is your budget for your wedding? And this question kind of doesn't scare people off, but people do take a while to fill out that question because some brides don't know. They're like, well, I don't know how much things are supposed to cost for my wedding. But because of the type of weddings that we do, we have to know what kind of budget are you looking at to make sure we're a good fit for you or we're a good fit for each other. Because this is what I don't want to happen. I don't want for a bride to book me at my price and the rest of their budget for their wedding is super, super small, because I would feel so bad that they would waste that money on me, or not even waste that money, but they would hire me for that high amount, that high price, when they can just get a really good day of coordinator and use that money that they would have spent on me and upgrade their flowers or, get a better venue. So I like to be very transparent with my brides when it comes to what is your wedding budget and what is your budget for a planner, because I don't want them to misuse their money on a smaller scale wedding, that instead of, booking me, they can just use that money and I'll refer them to a great day of coordinator. I would rather them spend that money on making their wedding look the absolute best that it can than them spending that money on me and we don't have a lot left over to use anywhere else. So that's one of the questions that I like to ask as well. And that's pretty much it in terms of questions. Just what is your date? How many people are you bringing? What kind of venue are you looking for? And then what is your wedding budget?
Awesome. So people don't necessarily have to have their venue booked.
No. And I've seen now a lot where they come to us and they don't have their wedding booked. And then when they hire us, that's when we start digging deeper into what kind of look are you looking for? What kind of style wedding do you want? And we're able to go on venue tours with them. And we recommend, our top 5 venues to them. And we'll actually go there with them and see, what are the pros and cons of this venue? Is this your venue? Are you saying yes to the venue today? So they don't necessarily have to have their venue when they come to us.
Yeah, it's so smart that you do a walkthrough with them, because sometimes people need a little bit of help visually, just trying to visualize how a room can be changed and flipped and all of that, and how to use, make use of the whole space.
Exactly. I just went on a venue tour with a bride to the Oxford Exchange. And, during the day, their bookstore, a coffee, counter, and then they have the restaurant. So she really couldn't imagine, wait, how does this turn into a reception venue? So I told her, all the furniture here gets moved out. We can put draping here so you don't have to see the bookstore. The restaurant, you can use that for ceremony or reception. So it was really awesome to walk the venue with her, because instead of it being a hard no for her, now she can really envision, oh yeah, you're right. This will all be cleared out. Oh yeah, I can have my ceremony over here, my reception here. So I really do love walking the venues with the brides.
Yeah. And that's also why it's helpful to know the guest count too, because how you use the space and the number of guests that you have in that space really makes a big difference.
Exactly.
So a lot of couples right now are getting engaged. It's engagement season. So they're likely just starting out with their wedding planning. And for most people, they've not planned a wedding before. So what do you say to couples who have zero clue as to where to even start? Like they're riding this proposal engagement high and they're like, I want to do everything, but like, where do I begin?
I always recommend for brides to at least hire their photographer and their venue first. And I feel like those are the 2 most important vendors that you'll need, because they are not always available. Like they're not just have all this super they don't always have the availability that you would want. So like a photographer, you can be getting booked a year in advance, maybe 2 years in advance, especially since COVID, you have all these reschedules happening. So I'm right now, when I'm getting my new brides, I'm saying, hey, book your photographer first and book your venue first, because they will probably not have as much availability as you would think because of what's been going on with the pandemic. And then hire me, or, they've already hired me. So now we can look at DJ, caterer, florist, things like that. But the first thing when they're getting engaged, I think that they should be looking at their photographer. Who's their photographer going to be? And hey, where are we going to have our wedding at, our ceremony and our reception? And then how many people do we want to invite? I think those are the first couple of steps that need to be done as soon as a couple gets engaged.
Yeah, I totally agree with that answer. Yeah. All right. So we talked about the beginning. Now I want to talk about the tail end of the wedding planning, because I think most couples, they're like, I don't know where to start. They figure out where to start. They book their big vendors and they get a little bit lost at the end, and they start posting questions like, this is what I have. I have my photographer, my venue, my florist, my planner, all this stuff. What am I missing? And then you'll see their timeline checklist says, finalize this plan, finalize with the florist, finalize your ceremony.
Mm-hmm.
What does that word finalize really mean? I feel like it's like an open-ended little checkbox that it's like, okay, are we double checking that I've that I've hired an officiant, or what does it mean?
It's a word that causes anxiety, especially on the cute little checklist that you get from the Knot or Wedding Wire you found online on the cute wedding site. It's like, finalize this. And you're like, wait, I thought I was. So what I usually do for my brides is we have like a finalization meeting. And for them, it just kind of takes a lot of the stress off of, did I do this right? Did we do enough of this? Did we do this? Because you're honestly not going to really know what your final head count is or any of that until maybe like 2 weeks before the wedding, a month before the wedding. So if you have a wedding planner, your wedding planner should be doing a finalization meeting or like a final walkthrough. And that is kind of to just get your mind ready to just have fun on your wedding day. So if you feel like, you know what, I don't know, I feel like something's missing, you should be sitting down and looking at your timeline for the wedding day, looking at what time is hair and makeup going to start? What time is hair and makeup going to end? What time do I start pictures? What time do we line up? And a lot of that, just going over it in your mind, will start to ease a lot of that off of you.
Yeah. So I think what you're really saying here is that finalizing really means you're nailing down the specific logistics of the day. Not that you've just hired someone and you've told them your vision and generally what you want. You're making a specific plan logistically about how things go, where it's supposed to be and when.
Exactly. And a lot of times brides just want a task to do. And so I think it's great, like if you get in a position where you feel stuck or I don't know if I've done everything, I start to recommend, okay, hey, let's start labeling all the things that you have for the wedding day and put all those things in a box and then tape the label on top of the box. So, things like your guest book, your card box, your place cards, your pictures, start putting all of that into a box and then label that box. And that will start to help you realize, okay, wow, I've really done a lot during this wedding planning process. And I'm at the final stages. Look at me. I'm packing everything for my wedding planner, or I'm packing everything for my day of coordinator, and everything is labeled nicely. And sometimes just little things like that start to relieve a little bit of that anxiety or that, not being sure about if I'm doing everything correctly or if I've covered every aspect of the wedding day.
Mm-hmm. Are there questions that couples have asked you that you've been surprised to get? Or maybe are there questions that they don't ask enough?
So I get this question a lot, and it's like, what do we do if people that aren't invited show up? And I'm like, wait, does that really happen? Because I've never really had that happen. But it is something that brides do think about. Like, what if somebody comes that wasn't invited? And I'm pretty sure that I want to let brides know that's not gonna happen. But that is a question that I get a lot. But you've sent out your RSVPs, you've gotten them back. Everybody who's supposed to come that's been invited will either come or not come. But there's not ever like an influx of people who have found out about your wedding day and they show up. I've never had that happen, but I do get that question. Another question that I wish brides would ask me more is, I would say, it's in relation to the DJ. So for the wedding, we're planning the processional, the recessional, we're planning on all these details. But I usually see like on the wedding day when reception has started and it's time for the wedding party to do introductions, sometimes that can be a hot mess. Excuse my hot mess French, but it can be a hot mess sometimes. So I would really like to see more brides like talking to their DJ beforehand about, hey, where are we going to line up and who's going to go be called out first? And, what music cue should we listen to before we all walk in? Because there's sometimes like a disconnect there. And then I have to be like the rallying person. And, by that time, pretty much everybody's enjoyed their cocktail hour drinks. And it's a little harder to round everybody up. So I do wish that brides would not forget about that part and ask more questions of their DJ in terms of, hey, what are we going to do for intros? Or where should we line up for intros? And how would you like for us to assemble? And that would help me out a lot. And I think that it would also help the couple out because they're ready to make their big intro, but all their friends are like all over the place drinking. So I think that's probably just the only question that I would like more from brides.
Yeah, that makes sense. Do you have, before we wrap up, are there any little nuggets of advice, best advice that you want to share with couples? Doesn't necessarily have to be planning related.
I would just like to say that we're in the middle of a worldwide pandemic and we don't know what's going to happen in 2021, but we are also in that engagement season. So I would say, don't let this pandemic hamper any of your plans, your ongoing plans, especially, to the gentlemen that may be listening that want to get engaged, but they don't know. Don't let this pandemic halt any of your plans. Just go through with it. If you have to have a smaller wedding, that's fine. If you still want a huge wedding, that's fine as well, because there are some venues that are still allowing for big weddings to happen. And then they'll give you all of the procedures that they're taking to make sure that you and your family and your wedding party are safe. And I say that because just 2 weeks ago, we had a wedding with 150 people and it went amazing. And that same day in Tallahassee, we had another wedding with 50 people and it went amazing. So weddings are still happening. People are still getting engaged. Love has not stopped. So don't let the pandemic halt any of your plans. Just go through with it. Enjoy that person for the rest of your life. Don't let it stop you. And that's all I have to say about that.
I agree with that. I would also say, to tag along with that, if you're a bride and you're planning your wedding, you feel like you're the only one doing something a certain way, you're probably not.
Exactly.
There's a ton of other couples out there doing things totally different too. So just because your friend did something one way and it was amazing and your other friend did something a different way and it was still amazing, like, do you.
Yeah, do you and be true to who you are, because that's the thing is, if you change something because of how you feel, people are going to look at you or what's going on in the news. If you go through with not your original plans, there's a huge chance you're going to regret not staying true to yourself, especially with something so big as like a wedding. You just stay true to yourself. Do you. Don't worry about what other people are doing in the midst of this pandemic. It's your wedding with you and your boo thing. So don't worry.
Yes, it's your wedding and you don't need permission that someone else is doing the same thing in order for you to do that thing.
Exactly.
So tell me where brides can find you online. How can people connect with you?
So like I said before, Instagram, that's where most of our brides find us. And we are at the Apostolic Wife. And then, our website is linked on there. It's theapostolicwife.com. You can email us at hello@theapostolicwife. It's kind of a long word to write, but once you start typing it in, it'll probably pop up for you. We're also on Pinterest, so you can see some of our designs, some of our future designs that we're coming up with, but definitely hit us up on Instagram.
Good. Thank you, Angie. Your advice was just so stellar and helpful. And I think couples are going to love listening to this episode.
Oh, thank you, Heidi. Thank you so much for having me today. I really had a lot of fun.
I don't know about you, but I feel so much clarity every time I talk with Angelina. She's an inspiration, she's approachable, and she's dang good at her job. So if you need a wedding planner, please go connect with her. But before you do that, if you love this episode, if you found one piece of advice on here helpful, please share this episode. Take a screenshot, post it on your Instagram or Facebook or wherever you hang out the most, or better yet, send a link to this episode to someone who just got engaged and might not know where to start, because we talk about this in the episode. So send this episode to someone who just got engaged that might need a little bit of help. One final shout out to Basic Invite for sponsoring this episode. Get 20% off your custom save the dates or invitations by using the code Pine and Forge at checkout at basicinvite.com. For more episodes and wedding planning resources, head to floridaweddingpodcast.com and stay connected between episodes on Instagram and Facebook at Florida Wedding Podcast.